So Yasir Qadhi, we are coming to you also.
Allah says in the Quran, فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ. If you differ about anything, take it back to Allah and His Messenger. Ibn Abbas said, take it back to Allah and His Messenger means you take it back to the Quran and the Sunnah. The Quran and the Sunnah go hand in hand. You cannot have Islam without the Sunnah of the Messenger of Islam. It's as simple as that. You cannot have Islam without the Sunnah of the Messenger of Islam. Anybody who comes and says, I only want to follow the Quran, is contradicting himself, because the Quran tells you to follow the Sunnah. You cannot have the Quran except it comes with the Sunnah.
Let's deal with him now. Now I'm going to replay the video and we are going to examine it one by one. Remember, I'm the correctional officer, right? Okay. Let's listen to Yasir Qadhi. You heard it, the claim he made, right? He's speaking with confidence as if he's fighting with us. But listen.
Allah says in the Quran, فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ.
Like I told you, the mushriks never quote verses in full. They just use a portion and then they will use their garbage books to explain that verse. So I'm going to show you the guidelines to how to catch their lies when they are lying to you.
فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ.
So he's quoting chapter 4 verse 59, Surah An-Nisa, where God says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu ati'u Allah wa ati'u rasul wa ulil amri minkum. Then he says, فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ. Quran chapter 4 verse 59. This is where the verse starts. But do you see where Yasir Qadhi started? He just started from فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ. Now he's going to tell us the meaning of the verse. He didn't say he know the verse. This guy has graduated from whatever Azhar, Medina Azhar or whatever, University of Medina in Saudi Arabia or whatever. But he has no idea what the verse means. So he's going to tell us the meaning of the verse. But listen.
If you differ about anything, take it back to Allah and His Messenger.
So now he's translating the verse and he says, if you differ about anything, take it back to God and His Messenger. So now listen.
Ibn Abbas said, take it back to Allah and His Messenger means you take it back to the Quran and the Sunnah.
So he says, Ibn Abbas said, take it back to God and the Messenger means take it back to the Quran and the Sunnah. Ibn Abbas. He said Ibn Abbas, not the Prophet. He didn't say the Prophet said. Ibn Abbas said. Ladies and gentlemen, Islam, does it belong to Ibn Abbas? The Quran, does it belong to Ibn Abbas? Who should we listen to? I thought this mushrik says the Prophet is the best mufassir of the Quran. So upon all these hibijibis they keep telling us, the Prophet never explained this verse to them. He never told them what this verse means. So Ibn Abbas, he has to tell you what this verse means. So then what is the Prophet doing? The Prophet never explained this verse, chapter 4, verse 59. فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ. He never told you the meaning. So Ibn Abbas, he's the one to tell you what it means. So it means the Quran and the Sunnah. Really? Ibn Abbas. Ibn Abbas. The last time I checked, he's not the Rasul. Then God says, فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ. He didn't say فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَإِبْنِ Abbas. This guy is telling us Ibn Abbas said the Quran and the Sunnah. Oh. So what did the Prophet say then? Nothing? Hey. Allah, these mushriks. Now listen to the mushrik again. Listen.
The Quran and the Sunnah go hand in hand.
The Quran and the Sunnah go hand in hand based on what Ibn Abbas said. You see the foolishness of these mushriks. Do you see the foolishness? And when I call them bozos, you think I'm insulting them. It's the description of who they are. He says the Quran and the Sunnah go hand in hand. Says who? Is that what the Prophet said? Or this time around, is it Ibn Abbas who told him that? Ibn Abbas told him, right? Okay, let's listen.
You cannot have Islam without the sunnah of the messenger of Islam.
Is that what God said? That you cannot have Islam without the sunnah of the messenger? Where in the Quran does it say sunnah to Muhammad or sunnah to Nabi or sunnah to Rasulullah? Where does it say that? Quran chapter 33 verse 38 is telling you whatever the prophet is doing is based on what God has ordained for him. Faradallahu lahu. Then he says sunnatallahi. So it is the sunnah of God the prophet was even following, not the sunnah of himself. You said we cannot have Islam. Are you a fool? Don't you know Islam already existed before Prophet Muhammad came on earth? Why are these people so dumb and foolish like this? Quran chapter 42 verse 13 to verse 14. It is the same religion God advised to Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and all the prophets. You are foolishly standing in front of the people telling them that you cannot have Islam. Oh, these foolish people thought Islam started in the 7th century. Do you see what I tell you about these bozos? They thought Islam started in the 7th century. So you cannot have Islam without your garbage books. Is that what you're telling us? So no wonder you disrespect God and the Quran. Ma qadarullah haqqa qadari. You do not value God with his true value. Since you are all out against God and his Quran, we are also all out against you and your garbage books. We shall see.
It's as simple as that. You cannot have Islam without the sunnah of the messenger of Islam. Anybody who comes and says, I only want to follow the Quran, is contradicting himself, because the Quran tells you to follow the sunnah.
Where does the Quran say we should follow the sunnah? Sunnah of who? Allah, these people are comedians too. Sunnah of who? Where does the Quran say we should follow sunnah? Sunnah of who? Tell us. Who? Which verse? Mushrikan banza kawai.
You cannot have the Quran except it comes with the sunnah.
You cannot have the Quran except it comes with the sunnah. Is that what God told you? Is that what Prophet told you? Hey. 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 These comedians, eh? Do you see them? Now, this is what I call the enemies of Islam. These are the real enemies of Islam. But then you listen to them because they have the numbers, they have the followers. When they say we hate God and the Prophet, you agree. You think babashuaib is the enemy of Islam. These are the people you are venerating, putting on your TVs, televisions, and watching them in the Ramadans and so on, and you think they are holy.